Clara Voss had been standing beneath the hiring shed less than 10 minutes when Walter Finn marked her card Unskilled, wrote $4 beneath it, and called Nathan Hale forward as though he were choosing a shovel instead of a grown woman. Rainwater still dripped from the roof while growers moved along the plank platform, asking workers about backs, hands, horses, and harvest experience. Finn tapped Clara's card. No local reference. $4 for the harvest contract. Clara looked at the chalkboard behind him. 3 orchard placements remained. One offered $6 for ladder work. Another offered $5 for packing. Nathan Hale's posting offered $4 and listed picking, sorting, packing, crate loading, wagon loading, and general yard work under one heading. Clara read it twice. Nathan stood beside Finn with a weathered hat in one hand. He was tall, lean, and looked more tired than poor. Fresh mud marked his boots. Finn nodded toward Clara. She'll do what she's told. Clara lifted her eyes. I usually do what makes sense. Nathan looked at her for the first time. You worked orchards before? Packing houses. That wasn't my question. No. Finn laughed. Nathan did not. Clara looked once more at the postings. I'll take Hale Orchard. Finn stopped writing. The ladder crew pays more. I know. Nathan's eyes narrowed. Why mine? Because you're hiring one person for 6 jobs. She pointed to his notice. Either you're very efficient, Mr. Hale, or something is crossing your yard too many times. Nathan put on his hat. You can tell that from a board? Enough to be curious. Finn muttered about educated trouble. Nathan signed the contract. Hale Orchard sat west of North Yakima, where dry grass showed between rows of apple trees. Clara saw trouble before Nathan finished tying the wagon team. 3 pickers worked eastern rows, where much of the fruit still carried a green cast. Baskets from a riper western section sat in the sun. 2 empty wagons waited near the packing shed. Inside, workers stood around sorting tables crowded with uneven crates. A boy crossed the yard for nails, returned for a hammer, then crossed it again for a crate gauge. Clara said nothing. Nathan lifted her carpet bag from the wagon. Bunk room is behind the cook shed. Supper at 6. Work starts before first light. What do you want me doing, wherever Elias puts you? Elias Mercer was gray at the temples and unimpressed by newcomers. The next morning, he handed Clara a picking apron. East rows. She looked at the fruit. Why those? Because we finish rows in order, even when another row is ripe first? Elias slid his pruning knife across a whetstone. That's how we know where we've been. Clara tied on the apron. For the first day, she did not argue. She picked, carried, sorted, and counted. Fruit from the eastern rows waited longer because the wagon lane ran behind the western block. Packers stopped whenever crates ran short. Crates ran short because the repair bench stood across the yard from the lumber. Nathan answered nearly every question himself. Which rows next? Which apples went to town? Which wagon took which load? He moved constantly and still managed to slow everyone around him. At dusk, Clara sat outside the bunk room with 3 short cloth strips across her knee, red, yellow, and faded blue. She moved them from left to right, then back again. On the second morning, Elias pointed east. Clara stayed where she was. Give me 20 minutes. For what? West side of row 7. We're on row 4. Row 7 is ready. Row 4 isn't. Nathan was crossing the yard with a broken crate. What's this? Clara faced him. Let me move one crew for 20 minutes. No, then keep losing fruit. Elias gave a low whistle. Nathan set down the crate. You've been here 1 day. Yes, and now you know my orchard? No, I know baskets. She pointed toward the western rows. Ripe fruit sits in heat while your crew picks green fruit because the numbers are tidy. Your empty baskets are behind the workers. Your sorting table is too far from the wagon lane. Give me 20 minutes. If I slow you down, I'll work the time after supper." Nathan looked toward row 7. Then, at Elias. Elias shrugged, her back. Nathan turned to Clara. 20 minutes. Clara shifted empty baskets ahead of the pickers and moved the crew to the ripe side of row 7. She asked 2 packers to drag one sorting table closer to the wagon lane. Elias complained once. Then the first baskets arrived without waiting. The best fruit went straight into shipping crates. Bruised apples dropped into a separate bin instead of being handled twice. Before noon, a wagon rolled out of the yard. Nathan watched it go. Usually the first wagon left after dinner. He came toward Clara. That worked. It did. "You still don't stop my crews without asking. Next time I'll ask." She held his gaze. "But I won't tell you the old way was good." Something nearly became a smile at the corner of his mouth. Nearly, he looked down the road after the departing wagon. "We've missed 2 rail loading slots this month." Clara's attention sharpened. "How many can you afford to miss?" "Maybe 1 more." "And after that?" "Late fruit goes local." "At what price?" "Bad enough." That evening, Clara entered the empty packing shed. She hammered 5 nails into a bare wall plank. Above them she wrote, "Ready. Picking, sorting, packed, shipped." Then, she tied colored cloth strips beneath the first nail. Nathan appeared in the doorway. "What are you making?" Clara finished the last knot. "A way to see where your harvest is getting lost." He studied the strange little line of color. "How long do you need?" 3 days. Nathan looked from the wall to Clara. "You have 3 days." By sunrise the next morning, Clara had added 27 strips of cloth to the packing shed wall. Each strip stood for 1 orchard row. Red meant fruit already ready to pick. Yellow meant nearly ready. Blue marked late fruit that needed more time. Elias Mercer stood beneath the wall with his sharpening stone in one hand. "Looks like somebody hung washing in the wrong place." Clara tied another red strip beneath ready. "Then don't let the washing get ahead of you." Elias snorted. Nathan came in carrying a crate ledger. "What happens when a row starts picking?" Clara moved 1 strip to the second nail. "It goes here, and when the fruit reaches sorting," she moved it again. Nathan studied the 5 headings. "So everyone knows what comes next." "That's the idea." Without asking me, "That's also the idea." He did not answer that. Clara spent the morning proving the wall was more than decoration. The pickers stopped waiting for Nathan to name another row. Elias could glance toward the cloth strips and see which block was ready. Packers knew whether more fruit was coming, or whether they could finish the crates already on their tables. Even the wagon driver stopped walking into the orchard to ask when his next load might be ready. Nathan still moved through everything. He checked ladder ropes that Elias had already checked. He counted stacked crates after Clara had counted them. He pulled 1 wagon pin, tested it, then pushed it back. Clara watched him do it twice. At midday, a woman sorting apples called toward the yard. "Mr. Hale, where do you want the small reds?" Nathan turned. Clara spoke first. "Second table. Town crates." The woman moved them. Nathan looked at Clara. "You answered for me. You were checking a wagon pin. It needed checking." "Elias checked it this morning." Nathan glanced toward Elias. Elias lifted 1 eyebrow. Nathan walked away. Clara let him. That afternoon, Nathan found her measuring the distance between the sorting tables and the wagon door. "What now? I want the shed tomorrow." He stopped. "You already have half of it." "No, I want all of it." Nathan folded his arms. "For what?" "1 full day. I decide who sorts, who packs, where the empty crates stand, and when wagons come forward. And if you jam the place, you take it back." He looked toward the wall. 2 more strips had already reached shipped. Nathan rubbed a thumb along the edge of his belt. 1 day. Clara nodded. You stay out unless someone gets hurt or I start losing fruit. That sounds too comfortable for you. It won't be. He almost smiled again. The next morning, Clara changed nearly everything inside the shed. Empty crates went beside the packers instead of against the far wall. Rejected fruit moved straight to the cider bins. One table handled only larger apples for rail shipment. Another packed the mixed fruit going into town. Elias took charge of moving full crates to the loading lane. Nathan arrived just as Clara pointed toward the western block. I need you there. He stopped. Doing what? Replacing broken ladder steps and keeping empty baskets moving. Nathan stared at her. That's hired handwork. Yes, I own the orchard. Yes, and you're assigning me baskets. You said I had the shed. For several seconds, nobody nearby moved. Then, Elias coughed into his sleeve to cover something dangerously close to laughter. Nathan looked around the room. Everyone was waiting to see what he would do. He picked up the basket stack. Western block? Western block. He left. The shed ran faster without him. That fact bothered Nathan for the first 2 hours. Then, he began noticing how much actual work he finished when nobody stopped him every 5 minutes. By noon, the usual line of waiting baskets had disappeared. By 2, the packers were working from fresh fruit instead of fruit that had been sitting since morning. By 4, Elias dragged the bruised fruit bin outside and stopped beside Clara. Half what we usually throw in there. Clara looked inside. Not half. Elias waited. 42%. He stared at her. You counted? Of course. He gave her a slow nod and carried the bin away. Near sunset, the last backed-up table went bare. The sudden space inside the shed felt strange. Workers began sweeping instead of rushing. Nathan stepped through the door with dust on his sleeves. He looked at the empty tables. How many crates? 31 more than yesterday. Bad fruit? Down. Wagon waiting time? Less than half. Nathan looked at the wall. Nearly every strip had moved at least one position. A young picker came in carrying a torn basket strap. Mr. Hale. Where should I? Nathan pointed toward Clara. Ask her. The boy turned immediately. Clara told him where the repair leather was. Nathan watched him go. Neither of them mentioned what had just happened. After supper, Clara returned to the shed and found Nathan beside the crate-sizing jig. One guide board had warped enough to catch every third crate. I was going to fix that tomorrow, she said. Nathan held the board against the frame. Then tomorrow can have one less problem. She picked up a hammer. He kept the timber steady while she reset the guide. For once, they worked without disputing who had the better method. Nathan's sleeve brushed hers when he shifted his grip. Neither moved away immediately. The shed smelled of fresh pine shavings and apples. Clara drove the last nail. Nathan released the board. My partner used to say I worried too much about limits. She looked at him. You had a partner? 5 years ago. He sat on the edge of the repair bench. He promised fruit we didn't have wagons to carry. Bought acreage we couldn't work. Then left me holding the debt. Clara rested the hammer beside her. So now, nobody promises anything unless you approve it. Something like that. And nobody moves anything unless you see it. Nathan glanced toward the cloth wall. That too. He was quiet for a moment. A grower north of town offered to buy this place in June. Clara turned toward him. You refused. He would have torn down the worker cottages and brought in seasonal crews. She understood then. Nathan had not been guarding only himself. He had been holding too much because he did not know another way to keep everything from coming apart. The next morning, Nathan called the crew together. If it concerns harvest flow, ask Clara. Nobody laughed. Elias merely sharpened his knife and nodded once. Clara had asked for 1 day inside one shed. By noon, she was directing the entire operation. That evening, she checked the freight schedule Nathan kept beside the office door. 3 strong rail dates remained. She counted the days twice. Then, she called Nathan over. His face changed when she showed him. The final profitable shipment was not weeks away. It was 9 days away. 9 days changed the entire orchard. Clara moved the picking crews by ripeness instead of row number. She staged empty crates beside the correct tables before sunrise. Wagons stopped waiting in the yard because their loads were prepared before the teams were harnessed. Every evening, another cloth strip crossed the wall toward shipped. Nathan no longer checked each crate stack after Clara did. The first time he walked past one without counting, she noticed. She said nothing. So did he. For 4 days, Hale Orchard gained ground. Then, Cyrus Boone arrived. His freight wagon came through the gate just after breakfast, throwing a line of dust across the crate yard. Boone stepped down, with a brass watch in one hand and a folded schedule in the other. He was thick through the shoulders, gray at the beard, and dressed like a man who expected every minute to justify itself. Nathan met him outside the shed. "I need more wagon space for the last shipments." Boone opened the schedule. "You have what you contracted. We're packing more than expected. That's good news for you, not if it sits here." Boone tapped the paper with one finger. "Every wagon between here and the rail platform is committed." Nathan looked toward Clara. She had already stopped pretending not to listen. "What about an extra run after the afternoon loads?" she asked. Boone checked his watch. "No. 1 wagon? No. Half a wagon?" Boone looked at her for the first time. "You Clara Voss?" "Yes. I've heard about your cloth wall." Elias, stacking crates nearby, muttered, "Whole territory will be hanging laundry by winter." Boone ignored him. "My schedule doesn't change because one orchard finally learned to pack on time." There was no insult in his voice. That made it harder to argue with him. Clara stepped closer. "If our fruit is ready early, it waits for your slot. If another grower doesn't fill his wagon, his contract still owns the space unless he releases it." Nathan exhaled through his nose. Boone folded the schedule. "Your next load goes tomorrow. Then, 4 days after, final strong shipment at sunset on the 9th day." "And after that?" Clara asked. "Local rates." He climbed back onto the wagon. Before leaving, he looked once at the colored strips inside the shed. "Make the wall move faster." The wagon rolled out. Nathan watched the dust settle. "We sell the late fruit here." Clara turned. "At cider prices? We take the loss we can survive. We haven't measured the loss yet. I know what happens when a man promises shipping he doesn't have. This isn't your old partner's operation." Nathan's mouth tightened. "No, it's mine. And right now you're making his mistake in reverse." That landed badly. Elias stopped stacking. Nathan lowered his voice. "You get one afternoon." Clara met his eyes. "To do what? Show me another way." She left Hale Orchard before noon. The first neighboring place belonged to Amos Reed, whose pear trees stood north of the wagon road. His loading yard looked efficient until Clara saw 3 wagons leave half full. Pear crates were stacked only 2 high. "Why waste the top space?" she asked. Amos slapped one crate. "Stack another layer and these buckle before town." Clara examined the thin corner braces. "You need stronger boxes." "I need lumber." "I have boxes." That made him look at her. At the second orchard, she found a different problem. Sarah Bell had 2 good wagons and not enough sound apple crates to fill them on her final run. Clara stood between the empty wagon beds and the pile of split boxes. By then, the shape of the answer was already forming. She returned to Hale Orchard near supper. Nathan waited beside the shed. Well? Clara laid 3 figures on a chalkboard. We have reinforced crates Reed needs. Nathan nodded slowly. Belle has wagon capacity she can't use without more sound crates. Another nod. We give Reed boxes and 2 hours of packing help during our slack period. He releases part of his wagon space to us. And Belle? We trade crates for space on her final 2 runs. Nathan studied the numbers. We'd be coordinating 3 orchards. Yes, 1 delay crosses into the others. Yes, 1 broken wagon, 1 late crew, 1 bad load, yes. He looked at her. Clara waited. Nathan did not reach for the chalk. He did not recount her figures. He asked only one question. Do you believe we can run it? Yes, she pointed toward the shed, but not if you take the operation back when it gets ugly. Nathan looked past her at the crew. Then, he took the freight board from beside the office door and placed it in her hands. Then, I won't. The next 5 days became the hardest work Clara had ever organized. Reed's pear crates came through Hale's repair bench. Belle's wagons were measured against Clara's loads. Elias took charge of crate returns. Nathan worked wherever Clara placed him. The old habit still showed sometimes. His eyes followed wagon pins. His hand reached towards stacked crates. Then, he stopped himself. The crew noticed, so did Clara. Boone returned twice. Both times he refused to shift a departure by even 10 minutes. Clara stopped asking. His rigidity was no longer the problem. It was simply the wall they had to build around. On the evening before the final 2-day push, Clara stood inside the packing shed after everyone else had gone. Cold air entered through the open doors. The orchard no longer smelled sweet and hot. It smelled of damp canvas, fresh lumber, and the first edge of autumn. Most cloth strips had reached shipped. 3 remained underpacked. 1 blue strip still hung beneath ready. North block. Late apples. Enough fruit to cover winter wages for the permanent crew. Nathan entered without speaking. He stood beside her. That one? She nodded. Still too much green this morning. By dawn, we take what's ready and leave the rest. How much do we need? Enough to fill the last shared wagons. Nathan looked toward the strip. And if we don't, then we keep the orchard and cut winter work. He knew what that meant. Fewer wages. Empty cottages. Families leaving before spring. Clara moved the blue strip between her fingers. Nathan did not tell her it would be fine. He did not take the board from her. Instead, he said, "Where do you want me at first light?" North block. Doing what? Picking. Nathan nodded. Outside, wagon teams shifted in the dark. The final freight wagons would leave the rail platform at sunset the next day, whether Hale's fruit was aboard them or not. Clara looked at the lone blue strip still hanging under ready. She had 1 day to move it all the way to shipped. Clara reached the packing shed ramp before daylight and found Nathan already leading the North Block crew toward the trees. He did not ask for new instructions. He carried the picking ladder exactly where she had told him. Elias Mercer stood beside the crate lane, with his pruning knife tucked away for once. Reed's first wagon is due in 40 minutes. Clara checked the cloth wall. 3 strips sat underpacked. The blue North Block strip remained beneath ready. Then, we start. The orchard moved before the sun cleared the eastern ridge. Nathan's crew picked only fruit Clara had marked mature enough to ship. Baskets came out of the rows in staggered groups rather than all at once. Elias sent empty crates back on the same wagons that delivered full ones. Sarah Bell's first team arrived 10 minutes early. That should have helped. Instead, it created the first problem. The loading lane was still occupied by Reed's pear wagon. 2 teams blocked each other beside the shed. A worker called toward Nathan. "Mr. Hale, "Where do you want Belle's wagon?" Nathan looked toward Clara. Old habit pulled several other faces in the same direction. He pointed at her. "Ask the person running the yard." Clara stepped down from the ramp. Belle's team circles behind the cider bins. Reed loads from the east door. Nobody on hitches. The drivers moved. Within 3 minutes, the lane cleared. The first cloth strip crossed from packed to shipped. By 9, the sorting tables were falling behind. North Block fruit was arriving faster than Clara had expected. Good fruit piled at one end, while smaller apples clogged the town table. She moved 2 workers from crate repair to sorting. Elias frowned. "We'll run short of repaired boxes. For 20 minutes. And after 20? Send them back." He looked at the growing fruit pile, then nodded. The second table caught up. Nathan came in carrying 2 baskets. "North side is running heavy." "How heavy?" "Better than yesterday. Keep taking only mature fruit. We could clear the whole row." "No." He set down the baskets. Understood. That answer mattered more than either of them said. A month earlier, Nathan would have changed the order himself. Now he turned and went back to the trees. Near noon, one of Reed's wagons came late. Not badly late. 11 minutes. On an ordinary day, it meant nothing. Today, it threatened the whole sequence. Belle's second wagon needed the same loading lane. Clara checked the wall, then the yard. Load Reed only to the forward mark. Elias stared at her. "We have room for 6 more crates. Those 6 go on Belle's wagon. That's Reed's paid space. Not after he released the upper section to us." Elias remembered. "So we split the load. We use every foot twice if we have to." Nobody argued. The wagons rolled. Another strip moved to shipped. By 2 in the afternoon, only the blue North Block strip remained. It had finally crossed from ready to picking, then sorting. Clara could see the last apples coming from the trees. She could also see the western light beginning to change. Nathan arrived with the final basket himself. "That's it." Clara examined the fruit. "Enough." He looked at the wall. "Then, move it." Not yet. The strip could not move until the crates were loaded. The final 2 stacks had been packed for the wrong wagon. Clara saw the chalk marks and stopped Elias before he rolled them outside. Belle's mark is triangle. He looked at the crates. These are circles. Reed, someone had switched the stacks while making room. Elias cursed under his breath. Nathan stepped forward. "What do you need?" "Nothing from you." He stopped. Clara pointed. "Elias, open both stacks. Resort by mark. Nathan, take 4 empty crates to the west table. Sarah's driver gets the first finished 6. Nathan grabbed the crates. No argument. No hesitation. That was when Clara understood the hardest part of the day had already been won. Not the apples. Not the wagons. Trust. They repacked the loads. At 3:30, the blue strip moved to packed. The final wagons left Hale Orchard together. Clara and Nathan rode behind them. The road toward North Yakima shook beneath iron-rimmed wheels. Dust rose from the teams, but the afternoon had cooled enough that the drivers did not push them beyond a steady pace. Nobody spoke much. There was nothing left to plan. At the rail platform, Cyrus Boone stood beneath the freight clock with his brass watch open. Reed's wagon reached the siding first. Belle's followed. Hale's shared loads rolled in behind them. Boone looked at the crates, then at Clara. "You arranged these by loading order?" "Yes. Destination 2? "Yes," he closed the watch. "Good. That was all. No apology. No favor. No changed rule." The freight crews lifted the crates directly from wagon to railcar without reshuffling a single stack. The last Hale crate disappeared through the freight door with minutes left. Boone checked his watch again. "Close it." The door slid shut. Clara stood beside Nathan while the latch dropped into place. He looked at her. Did we get all of it? She reached into her coat pocket. The blue strip was there. She had taken it down before leaving the orchard. All that was worth shipping. Nathan smiled then. Not nearly. Not almost. Completely. The harvest money came in over the following days. There was enough to keep Hale Orchard intact through winter. Enough to pay the permanent crew. Enough to repair the worker cottages before the hard cold arrived. Nathan did not celebrate by buying land. He did not add acreage. He paid what needed paying and left room for spring. Boone returned the next week with next season's freight schedule. This time he handed it to Clara. You'll be planning Hale's loads? If Mr. Hale agrees. Nathan answered from behind her. Miss Voss does not need my permission to run harvest. Boone gave one short nod. Then I'll deal with Miss Voss. After he left, Nathan placed a new employment agreement on the packing table. Operations Manager. Permanent authority over harvest planning, packing, labor flow, and freight coordination. Clara read every line. Nathan waited. This is the job, he said. Nothing else is tied to it. She looked up. Nothing? Nothing, she signed. Weeks later, when the shed stood almost empty, Clara began removing the colored strips from the wall. Nathan worked beside her. They took down red, then yellow, then blue. When he reached for the last strip, Clara caught his wrist. Leave that one. Nathan looked at her hand resting against his sleeve, then at her face. I was hoping you might stay for more than the job. Clara let go slowly. As what? As whatever we decide together. She looked around the shed where nobody had to ask who was running the operation anymore. Then she smiled. I think we can work that out. She opened a fresh worksheet on the table and wrote spring across the top. Nathan pulled a chair beside hers, not across from her. Above them, one colored strip remained hanging over the plain wooden Hale Orchard sign. If Clara's $4 rise to running Hale Orchard stayed with you, subscribe and like for another Wild West story.